I still remember the sound of my father's hands slamming the table so hard the plates rattled. He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward, and his face, red, furious, was inches from mine. Family means sacrifice. And if you can't understand that, maybe you don't belong in this one, he roared. For a moment, no one moved. Not my mom. Not my sister. Just me, standing there with my travel bag still in my hand, gripping the ticket I'd saved for nearly a year. The room felt like it cracked in half. Because that's the moment I realized, it didn't matter how much I gave. It would never be enough, unless I gave everything. And the worst part? This wasn't even about a medical emergency. Or a real crisis. It was about her wanting my vacation, because she got dumped and didn't want to sit at home feeling sorry for herself. Somehow, in their eyes, that meant I was the selfish one, for not throwing away something I'd planned for nearly 8 months. Hi everyone, and welcome back to HD Reddit Stories. I want to ask you something before we dive in. Have you ever been treated like the bad guy, just because you finally said no? Have you ever stood up for yourself and watched your whole family turn cold in a heartbeat? If you've ever felt like you were the only one expected to shrink, to give, to bend for everyone else, you're not alone. In fact, I think a lot of us carry scars from being the one who always makes it easier for others, even when it breaks us a little every time. This is the story of how I finally said no, and what it cost me. Spoiler, it wasn't just the yelling, or the guilt tripping, or the way my dad lunged at me that night. It was something deeper, something that made me question where I stood in my own family. But in the end, it also became the moment I chose myself, and maybe for the first time. I didn't apologize for it. If you've ever had to make that choice too, or if you're still wondering whether it's okay to protect your own joy, this story is for you. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. We share true family stories just like this every day, stories about boundaries, betrayal, healing, and hard choices. Thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Growing up, I was the easy one. That's what my mom always said. I didn't throw tantrums. I didn't demand attention. I learned to clean up after myself early, to wait my turn, to say yes when I really wanted to say no. My younger sister, Ellie, on the other hand, she was fire. Dramatic, emotional, needy. The kind of kid who screamed in the middle of a grocery store if she didn't get the cereal she wanted. And guess what? She always got it. I didn't mind, not at first. I thought that was just the way families worked. I thought love meant stepping back so someone else could shine. And for most of my childhood, I played that role without complaint. I let Ellie wear my clothes, borrow my things, take the front seat on road trips, even though I was older. I gave up my weekends to help clean the house while she went out with friends. I told myself I was being a good daughter. A good sister. The cracks started to show in college. I wanted to attend a school across the country, New York, my dream. I had a partial scholarship and had already spoken to an advisor. But when my mom found out, she pulled me aside in the kitchen. Ellie's still struggling emotionally, she said, her voice low. We can't have both our girls far away. You know how your father is. It would break him. And honestly, Ellie needs you. She's never been as independent as you. So I stayed. I enrolled in a local university and lived at home for 2 more years. Ellie, of course, didn't finish high school on time. When she finally did, my parents threw her a graduation party bigger than my own. I remember watching her open gift after gift while my dad gave a speech about how proud we are of her perseverance. I clapped. I smiled. I felt like a ghost. But nothing hit harder than the vacation. It started with a spreadsheet. I was working 2 part-time jobs after college, saving every extra dollar. I wanted to take one real vacation before my new job began, a week in Italy. Not a lavish cruise or some influencer getaway. Just a small villa, booked through a modest travel site, with a detailed budget for food, museum passes, and train rides. It was going to be the first thing I did entirely for myself. When I announced it at dinner, everyone just kind of blinked. You're going alone? My dad asked, suspicious. That doesn't sound very safe. My mom chimed in. What if something happens? What if you get sick or robbed? Why not wait until Ellie can go with you? But Ellie didn't say anything. She was scrolling through her phone. I shrugged it off. I'd been invisible before. I was used to it. 2 weeks before my flight, Ellie had a public meltdown. Her boyfriend, fiancé, technically, broke up with her. They'd been together for barely 9 months, and he called it off by text. She cried for 2 days straight. My mom slept next to her in bed like she was a child again. My dad canceled his golf plans to stay home and support her. I gave her space. I checked in quietly. I even made her soup. But I didn't cancel my trip. That's when the whispers started. I overheard my mom on the phone with her sister. I just don't understand why she has to go now. Ellie's going through so much. It would mean the world to her if they could go together. I tried to be gentle. I sat my parents down. I explained how much planning had gone into it, how long I'd waited. It's not that I don't care, I said. But this isn't something I can just cancel. Everything's already paid for. My father's face twisted. So you're choosing a vacation over your sister's mental health? No, I'm choosing something for me, I said quietly. Ellie didn't talk to me for days. Then, on a random Tuesday night, my mom cornered me in the hallway. We've been thinking, she began. Maybe it makes sense for Ellie to take your ticket. You can reschedule, right? I laughed. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. What do you mean, take my ticket? She needs it more than you do, my dad added from the living room. You don't need to escape anything. She does. That's when something inside me snapped. I'm not canceling my trip, I said. I'm sorry Ellie's going through something, but I'm not giving this up. Not this time. The room went silent. Then my dad stood up. You ungrateful little. He stormed toward me, yelling. I don't remember the exact words, only the fury in his eyes. My mom pulled him back. Ellie finally looked up from her phone and muttered, Of course. It's always about you. I stood there, trembling, heart pounding. And then I turned, walked upstairs, and locked the door behind me. That night, I packed my bag in silence. I cried, not because I felt guilty, but because for the first time, I didn't. I didn't feel guilty. And that was new. That was terrifying. I left early the next morning without saying goodbye. The house was quiet. I half expected someone to block the door. But no one did. At the airport, I turned off my phone. I watched the terminal fill with people chasing their own joy, their own freedom. I was one of them. For once, I wasn't the one staying behind. When I landed in Rome, the air felt different, lighter, as if the weight of everyone else's expectations had stayed on the other side of the ocean. My shoulders relaxed for the first time in years, maybe decades. I didn't have anyone scheduled to follow. No one was texting me asking for favors. No one expected me to pick up slack or be the bigger person. It was just me, my suitcase, and a whole country I dreamed of for most of my 20s. I stayed in a little room above a bakery. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread crept through the shutters and wrapped around me like a hug. I walked everywhere, got blisters, got lost, got sunburned. And I didn't mind. I ate gelato on the Spanish Steps, cried at the Vatican, and stood alone on a hillside in Tuscany watching the sunset and thinking, this is mine. No one gave it to me. No one can take it away. But it wasn't all peace. My phone, even turned off for the first 2 days, buzzed to life with a fury when I turned it on. Dozens of messages. Angry. Guilt-laden. Accusatory. My dad's voice in one voicemail. I hope you're enjoying your little vacation while your sister is falling apart. But you wouldn't know about sacrifice, would you? My mom's text. I didn't raise you to be so heartless. Ellie didn't say anything directly, but she posted a photo of herself on Instagram looking sad and captioned it. Some people choose beaches over blood. The comments under it weren't even subtle. One of her friends wrote, Wow. Can't believe your own sister would abandon you like that. But for the first time, I didn't answer. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I left the messages unread, the guilt unclaimed. I just lived. Then something strange happened. I posted a short clip on TikTok. It wasn't meant to go viral. It was just me walking through a narrow street in Florence, laughing to myself, saying, POV, when your family freaks out because you finally say no, and you go to Italy anyway. I added the caption, sometimes protecting your peace looks selfish to people who only loved your sacrifice. I went to sleep with maybe 20 likes. By morning, it had 200,000 views. By the time I finished lunch, it had passed 1 million. Thousands of comments poured in. People sharing their own stories. Grown adults saying, I feel this in my soul. Strangers thanking me for showing what boundaries can look like. Some said it was the first time they didn't feel crazy for walking away. I was stunned. And for the first time in a long time, understood just how many people were out there. People like me, people tired of carrying emotional burdens just because. That's what family does. A small podcast DM'd me, asking if I'd want to talk more about my story. I said yes. Nervous, but yes. It aired a few days later. We didn't name names, and I didn't air any private grievances. I simply talked about the guilt of always being the dependable one, how people weaponize your kindness, and how hard, but freeing, it is to finally walk away. The episode exploded. Suddenly, I was being asked to write blog posts, join Instagram Lives, speak on panels. I wasn't a celebrity or influencer. I was just a woman who finally said enough. And it resonated. Meanwhile, back home, my parents were spiraling. A distant cousin messaged me, saying, What's going on? Your dad's been ranting on Facebook, saying kids these days don't respect family anymore. Apparently, he'd posted something cryptic about betrayal and selfish vacations. But commenters weren't sympathetic. In fact, one of my aunts, who had always seemed afraid to speak up, replied, Maybe if you raised both your daughters with equal compassion, this wouldn't have happened. That post disappeared quickly. Ellie unfollowed me on everything. No surprise there. But oddly enough, 2 of her friends messaged me privately to say they admired what I did. It must have taken guts. One wrote. She never lets anyone say no to her. By the time I got back from Italy, my life was not the same. I returned home to a dozen missed calls, but I didn't go back to my parents' house. I moved into a small apartment near the city center. Just mine. No roommates. No borrowed furniture. No notes on the fridge asking me to pick up milk or watch someone's dog. I thought they might show up at my door. They didn't. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Real mail. My dad's handwriting on the front. Inside, a typed letter. Formal. Cold. We are disappointed in your recent choices. Your behavior has caused a rift in this family, and your public portrayal of us has been both hurtful and inappropriate. Until you are ready to apologize, we believe it's best to take space. I folded the letter neatly and set it on fire in my sink. Dramatic? Maybe. But necessary. I wasn't angry. I was finally done. Done being the peacemaker. Done being the cushion. Done being the shadow behind Ellie's spotlight. And strangely, that space they wanted? It felt like freedom. I kept creating. Not revenge content. Not bitterness. Just truth. Boundaries. Healing. And it kept growing. More people found me. More stories poured in. Someone called me the voice of the middle child who never made waves but finally got tired of drowning. It made me laugh. One day, I got a call from a woman who ran a community wellness retreat. She invited me to speak about family guilt and emotional burnout. I went. I stood on a little stage in front of 70 women, most of them older than me, and told my story. One woman wept during Q&A. I spent 40 years giving up everything for my sister, she said. I thought that made me good. Now I wonder if it just made me invisible. We hugged. That night, I walked outside and looked up at the stars. I thought about the version of me who would have cancelled that trip. The one who would have cried for weeks because her dad yelled at her. She was gone. And in her place stood someone stronger, not hard or bitter but whole. Then came the twist I didn't expect. Ellie sent me an email. Just one sentence. I don't know why you leaving hurt so much, but it did. And I'm starting to wonder if that's on me, not you. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't reply. Not yet. But I saved the message. Because that, right there, that was something I never thought I'd get, not validation. Not revenge. But recognition. It was quiet. It was small. But it was a beginning. And the best part? It wasn't mine to chase anymore. 3 months passed. Seasons shifted, and with them, something in me softened, not in a way that made me want to run back or apologize for things I hadn't done, but in a way that let me breathe deeper. I no longer woke up with the tightness in my chest that used to come from guilt. I no longer rehearsed arguments in the shower or checked my phone for passive-aggressive messages. Silence, I learned, could be peace, not punishment. I still hadn't replied to Ellie's email. Not because I didn't care. But because, for once, I wanted to reply from a place of clarity, not obligation. One evening, I sat in my apartment with the windows open. The city buzzed below, but inside, it was calm. I reread her message. I don't know why you leaving hurt so much, but it did. And I'm starting to wonder if that's on me, not you. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a full sentence of ownership. But it was honest. More honest than anything I'd heard from her in years. So I wrote back. Ellie, I think you're right. I think a lot of what happened wasn't really about the vacation. Or even the ticket. I think it was about all the years I said yes without meaning it, and what it looked like the first time I didn't. I'm not angry. But I needed space to see myself clearly. To figure out who I am without always standing behind someone else. I hope you're okay. Me. I didn't expect anything back. And for a while I didn't get it. But it was enough. Because by then, I had changed. I was no longer waiting for my family to validate me. I wasn't bitter, but I was clear. I knew where I ended and where they began. I knew what I would give, and what I would never let them take again. That fall, I started a support group, just a few people at first, who met weekly to talk about family roles, about healing, about breaking cycles. We sat in a circle with tea and folding chairs, and every week, someone new would say, I didn't know other people felt like this. And every week, I reminded them, it's not selfish to protect your joy. One night, after group ended, I got a call. It was my mom. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. Her voice was quiet. Tired. I saw your video. The one with the podcast host. You looked strong. I don't know if we got everything wrong. But I know we got you wrong. And I just wanted to say, I hope you're happy. I really do. It wasn't a declaration of change. It wasn't an invitation. But it was humane. And maybe that's all I'd ever wanted from her. Not perfection. Just humanity. I didn't call back. Not then. But I cried. Not from pain this time, from relief. Because now, I could hear those words and not shrink. I could hold them without twisting myself to deserve them. In December, I flew back to Italy. Not to escape. Just because I wanted to. I sat again on the same hillside I'd found months earlier. I opened my journal and wrote, I am no longer angry. I am simply free. And that's when I realized something. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes, it just means release. If there's one thing I've learned from everything that happened, it's that silence isn't always peace, and sacrifice isn't always love. For years, I believed that to be a good daughter, a good sister, a good person, I had to say yes. Yes to extra chores. Yes to canceled plans. Yes to emotional labor. Yes to carrying burdens that weren't mine, simply because I was strong enough. I thought that if I just kept giving, eventually I'd be loved not for what I gave, but for who I was. But here's the truth no one tells you. If people only love you when you're saying yes, they don't really love you, they love what you do for them. And that realization hurt. It cracked something inside me. But it also opened a door. Setting boundaries didn't come easily. Saying no felt like betrayal, even when it was the only way to protect myself. When I told my family I wasn't canceling my trip, it felt like I'd declared war. I was shaking. I second-guessed myself. I replayed the arguments in my head, over and over, hoping for a version where they would suddenly understand. Where they would say, "You're right. You deserve this." But that version never came. What did come eventually was clarity. I realized that people who benefit from your silence will call you difficult the moment you find your voice. And that's okay. Their reaction doesn't define your worth. Their discomfort doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you finally chose yourself, and they didn't know what to do with that. There is so much pressure in families to conform, to keep the peace, to fall into roles and stay there forever. Maybe you're the fixer, the caretaker, the invisible one who holds it all together. Maybe you're the one who never gets a thank you, but always gets the responsibility. If that's you, I want you to know something. You are allowed to outgrow that role. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to ask, "What do I need?" Even if no one's ever asked you that before. Choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. Since I started sharing my story, I've heard from thousands of people, strangers who carry the same quiet pain I used to carry. They've told me, "I thought I was crazy for feeling this way." Or, "I thought I was the only one who felt invisible." You're not alone. There are so many of us. So many who have spent years holding our breath to keep the peace, until one day we realize, we deserve to breathe too. I used to think I needed their approval to be okay. Now, I know I only needed my own permission. Permission to go. Permission to grow. Permission to say, "Not this time." Permission to say, "That's enough." And eventually, permission to forgive, not because they asked, not because they deserved it, but because I no longer needed to carry the pain. If you're reading this and wondering if it's okay to choose your own happiness, even if it means disappointing people who love you, I want you to hear this. Yes. It is okay. You are not a villain for having needs. You are not wrong for walking away from relationships that ask for your silence more than your truth. You are not cold for wanting space. You are not ungrateful for wanting joy. You are human. And you deserve a life that feels like your own. So take the trip. Say the hard no. Turn off the phone. Speak the truth. Draw the line. It might hurt. It might break things. But in the space that opens after the dust settles, you will find something so precious, your voice. And once you hear it, really hear it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it.